My sister asked me for a $1,200 cake for her engagement party, but she told me I wasn't invited. Before I left, I made a toast in her honor. To give some context, I'm 26 and have been running my own bakery business for the last few years. I would say that we've been successful. My bakery is quite well known in the area I live in, and we've also been thinking about expanding for some time now. I am a professional and have always had a strong interest in this. Plus, I graduated from culinary school and have enough experience in the field to be considered a great baker. Most people in my family usually turn to me when they need cakes for events, and I'm very happy to do it for them. I even offer them lower prices than I would to most of my other clients. The only person who has never had a problem with me is my older sister. Let's call her Rebecca. She is 4 years older than me, and we used to have a good relationship, but things went south between us a couple of years ago. About 6 years ago, she brought her boyfriend home for Thanksgiving dinner. She had just started working at a new company, and that's where they met. They had only been dating for a few months, but I could tell she was quite serious about him. I didn't know if he felt the same way about her, because after dinner I went outside to smoke and he followed me and started flirting with me. I didn't feel comfortable with that, so I didn't entertain it and went back inside. Later that night, I pulled Rebecca aside and told her how her boyfriend had been acting towards me. She seemed upset, but didn't say much. All she said was that she would look into it later. I didn't think much of it because I felt I did the right thing, and it was up to her what she wanted to do about it. But I don't know why, after that incident, she started distancing herself from me. I did everything I could to keep in touch and encourage her to hang out with me, but one day she just stopped doing that and never explained her behavior. She even broke up with that guy a couple of months after that incident, but even after that, we never patched things up. I began to get really upset about how she was constantly avoiding me and acting like she didn't want to be near me or even talk to me, so I stopped making an effort to keep in touch with her. After that, things were never the same between us. We were polite to each other at family gatherings, but we weren't friends like we used to be. It wasn't until a few years later, maybe 3 years ago, that I found out what had really happened and why she stopped talking to me so suddenly. Our cousin, who both of us trust a lot, let's call her Lana, told me that Rebecca had shared certain things with her that she hadn't felt was her place to reveal at the time. But now we had all matured a lot, and she thought it was finally okay to share. Apparently, after that Thanksgiving dinner when Rebecca asked her boyfriend about what I had told her, he denied it and claimed that I had misrepresented the story and that I was actually the one flirting with him instead of the other way around. Rebecca believed him instead of me because she was quite insecure about me at that time and thought I was capable of hurting her. Of course, she never actually admitted that she was insecure about me, but the way she spoke about me made it clear. At least that's what Lana told me, and honestly it made sense because I had only ever been Rebecca's little sister. But after that, I became my own person, which might have been a little threatening to her, especially when her boyfriend was flirting with me. It was really painful for me that she would trust some random guy instead of me just because she needed a reason to hate me and paint me as the bad guy, all for being honest with her and refusing to live in her shadow my whole life. Lana had comforted me and told me it wasn't my fault, but I still felt really distressed at that time, and I don't think I ever fully got over it. I just thought that Rebecca and I were close enough to not let these trivial things interfere with our relationship, but obviously that was a one-sided expectation, and she was really just looking for any excuse to get rid of me so she could talk badly about me to others without feeling guilty about it. By the time I learned all of this, too much time had already passed, and Rebecca and I had stopped communicating long before all of this was revealed to me. So, at that point, it didn't seem worth it to confront her about it and try to fix things because it was too late, and we had both moved on with our lives. Rebecca and I hadn't been talking for almost 3 years when I found out, and Lana had distanced herself from her too. But that was just because both of them had been busy with their own lives and not due to any fight. Unlike us, Rebecca was busy because she was pregnant at the time. That was another reason I didn't think it was worth confronting her and bringing up all these past issues, because that would only lead to unnecessary stress that could easily be avoided just by ignoring it and not talking about it. She had been dating her now fiancé for a year at that point, and I had started my business when her son was around 5 months old. I'm not saying it was necessary for everyone in my family to reach out to me every time they needed cakes for an event, but I thought it would be nice if people did. And despite all the unresolved conflicts between us, I still hoped that Rebecca would reach out when she needed a cake for her son's birthday, because as family, that was literally the least she could do for me. But once again, I was disappointed. I expected people to support me and my new business, and most of my family did, even people who were acquaintances and not even friends purchased from me. But it was just Rebecca who never would have any business with me, and it felt really bad and insulting. The strange part of all this was that I was always invited to her son's birthday parties, and they always had some extravagant cake from some other bakery, and yet my mom always insisted I attend, even though I wasn't comfortable being there because she thought it was important for us. So I kept going to my nephew's birthday parties for the last 3 years, and I was always subjected to a ton of questions from a few nosy family members about the cake, and I felt forced to address the issue and tell them that the cake actually wasn't mine, and that Rebecca had gotten it from somewhere else. They always enjoyed the opportunity to hear that and smiled condescendingly about the drama. It was just becoming very unpleasant, and I was really tired of the same thing happening at every year's party. So this year I decided to skip the event and stay home because I just didn't care about appearances as much anymore, at least not as much as I did when I was 23. My mother was obviously very upset about it, but my father didn't seem to mind, and I don't think it made any difference to my sister either. It didn't seem worse at the party because I saw pictures online, but I guess it just gave her the perfect excuse to stop pretending to have a civil relationship with me and really start to avoid and hate me completely after I didn't attend her son's birthday this year. She blocked me on all forms of social media, and honestly, I was okay with that because we weren't friends anyway, and she made it very clear that the only reason I was invited to any of her family events was that our mom wanted us to at least be polite to each other. That was almost 5 months ago, and we haven't had any contact since then. There were some weddings and events we had to attend in between, but unlike before, when we at least used to greet each other when we met at these events, we no longer did. It was very obvious that we weren't talking to each other anymore, and I didn't care because we weren't friends. She was the one with the problem with me, so she could ignore me as much as she wanted. I just didn't care anymore. I had given up all hope of us ever having a good relationship again. But then she finally unblocked me a couple of weeks ago and reached out to me directly. I thought she was finally going to address all the issues we had during the last few years. I didn't even expect her to apologize, just for her to acknowledge that there was something wrong with how we had been treating each other, but she did none of that. Instead, she told me she had an order for me. I knew what it was about, because I had heard from a couple of people that she was now engaged and that David finally proposed after 4 years together, and they were getting married in a couple of months. So I figured maybe she was reaching out to ask me to make her cake for her engagement party, and I was right. She didn't even say please or anything to make her message sound polite, and it was really strange because no other client would talk to me like that because it's just rude. I'll attach the message she sent so you know exactly what I'm talking about. I need a 5-tier cake for my engagement party this weekend. Let me know the price tonight. That was it. No thank you, and no please. But anyway, I asked her to elaborate on the type of cake she wanted, and I replied to her as I would with any other client. I chose to treat her professionally because at the end of the day, this was business, and I wasn't going to let my personal relationship with her get in the way of that. She went on and explained exactly what kind of cake she wanted, and then I informed her that the price would be around $1,200 since the type of preparation she wanted was going to be quite elaborate, and it would take me time to prepare everything. She said that was too much for a cake like that, and that I needed to lower my price. I told her that was the price I was quoting because we were family, and I was giving her a discount, but otherwise I probably would have charged more for a cake like that. I also told her that I wasn't even charging her for delivery costs, so this was really the lowest price I could offer without taking a loss myself. I was also accepting this order under normal circumstances. I wouldn't have accepted such a large order with only a week's notice because any cake that has more than 2 tiers and is this elaborate typically requires orders to be placed 2 weeks in advance for the event. So I was already making a lot of concessions for her and going above and beyond, and that's why I wasn't willing to lower the price any further. I explained all this to her, and she didn't seem happy about it, but she didn't cancel the order. So I went ahead with everything, and 2 days ago, I finally headed to the venue to deliver the cake. My assistant and I delivered the cake about half an hour before everyone started arriving, and Rebecca really seemed impressed with my work. She even told me she was happy with how the cake turned out and was quite nice to me, which made me happy. Usually, once I finish the delivery and make sure everything is in place, I leave because my job is done. But I figured I could stick around because I was literally her sister, and we were family, so obviously I wasn't going to treat this purely as a business transaction. Besides, we had been on a good streak while discussing the cakes and everything in the few days leading up to the event, and I thought we were on good terms for a while. But that was a big mistake on my part because, clearly, that wasn't the case. And I felt absolutely humiliated afterward. My assistant left and went back to the shop, so I stayed for a few minutes, and some people started to arrive. Rebecca had taken the cake, and we had placed it on the table where she wanted it to be presented. So we were standing there, and just before she went to welcome her guests, she turned around and asked me why I was still waiting. I was really confused, so I said nothing. And in the silence that followed, she told me she was grateful for the cake, but that I actually wasn't invited to the event, and that this was just a professional matter. So she would appreciate it if I disappeared, because otherwise, everyone would just be talking about us and speculating whether we were repairing our relationship or not, and this wasn't the time for any of that, because the day was meant to celebrate her and her fiancé. She didn't want me there. After that little speech, I felt so small and humiliated that I almost left, but then I saw my parents coming in, and they didn't even notice me standing there. I don't blame them for it, but I don't know why that affected me so much. Probably because I felt like I had been asked to make that cake just so she could insult me, and seeing my parents made me feel like it was a deliberate attempt on her part to remind me that she didn't consider me family, even though I did. I had even given her a discount and had done everything I could to make everything easy for her. I felt terrible. So I decided to take revenge on Rebecca for insulting me like that. That's where I might have been the bad one, because I decided to make a speech at the event, and it wasn't pleasant. I grabbed the nearest wine glass and decided to call everyone's attention before making a little toast and letting people know exactly how I felt about her because I was really angry and not thinking clearly. I cleared my throat and announced that I had something to say, and then all eyes were on me. Most people were surprised to see me there because they all knew about the kind of relationship I had with Rebecca, but I wasn't going to be shy now and keep my mouth shut because I had finally had enough. And even though I could see my mom telling me to shut up, I still went on with my speech. I started by telling everyone how Rebecca and I used to be really close. But then one day she decided she was going to be jealous and insecure about me and started being a total jerk towards me, even though it wasn't my fault. Then I recounted the incident that happened at the Thanksgiving dinner 6 years ago and how she stopped talking to me because of her boyfriend at the time, who she didn't even last 2 months with. She just wanted a reason to hate me, and I had given it to her on a silver platter by being honest with her. So I continued talking about how she had blocked me everywhere after I didn't attend her son's birthday party this year. I even mentioned how some of the people present at that party were responsible because they were the ones who always brought up how she hadn't ordered any cake for me because of our tense relationship. At least those people had the decency to look embarrassed at that moment. But then I went on to tell everyone how she had contacted me a couple of days ago and how I had gone out of my way to do everything for her, and despite that, she told me I wasn't invited to her engagement party. The worst part was that she hadn't even paid me for the cake yet, and I was fine with that. Then I called her a bunch of names that I had been holding on to for literally years and ran out of there, driving back to my shop. I was furious about how things had played out that day and didn't want to talk to anyone. So I turned off my phone and tried to calm down because I hated everyone at that moment. It wasn't until later that night that I finally decided to check my phone because I had calmed down and felt ready to talk to people. I expected my parents to reach out for obvious reasons, but I didn't think they would actually be on Rebecca's side in this. Maybe my mom, but definitely not my dad. I was quite surprised to learn that they both thought what I did was completely unprofessional and unnecessary, and that I should apologize publicly to her because I had ruined her party, and it was really unfair to air our dirty laundry like that in front of everyone, because not only was she family, but some of her friends and colleagues were also present. I genuinely thought they were being completely irrational and decided to call them to talk it out. I suppose I was still quite upset about everything that happened that day, so the moment they answered the phone, I started shouting at them, telling them there was no way I was going to apologize to Rebecca because what she did was humiliating and she had no right to treat me that way. They told me they could understand where I was coming from, but I still felt humiliated, and that did not justify what I did because the way she insulted me was wrong. But at least she didn't make it so public, and what I did was quite public and reflected badly on all of us. My dad told me that I should have at least waited until the event was over to confront her, and at that point, they would have supported me no matter what she said, but they couldn't back me up on this and believed a public apology was necessary because what I did just wasn't right. I didn't agree with that, so I ended up arguing with my dad, and now no one in the family wants to talk to me. It had reached a point where I felt I was being forced to consider that maybe I had done something wrong and my actions weren't justified. I had also been thinking about this in a professional sense, and maybe it was a bad impression on my part because, clearly, she only wanted this to be a purely business transaction. But I had done everything I could to treat her like family. I suppose I should have known she only wanted my professional services and should have treated her like I would any other client, instead of going above and beyond. I feel like I've been taken for a fool, and even that stupid toast didn't make me feel better, and I think it worsened my relationship with my parents because now they don't even want to talk to me. And unless I apologize to Rebecca, it seems like this whole experience has been a total disaster for me. I just don't know how to deal with this or move on now, because even though I wouldn't mind talking to Rebecca again, I don't want it to be like that with my parents because I truly care about them, and I definitely would want to stay in touch with them. So do you think I should apologize to Rebecca and just end this? Am I the bad guy for ruining my sister's engagement party after she asked me for an expensive cake, but then told me I wasn't even invited? Update 1. A couple of days ago, I decided I was going to apologize to Rebecca because I just wanted all of this to end. Honestly, I don't even care if she deserves that apology or not, but I just wanted this to be over and to be on good terms at least with my parents. So, I made up my mind and was going to apologize to her. It had been 5 days since everything happened at the party, and my parents hadn't spoken to me during those 5 days. But the day I was going to apologize, my dad came to me and said he was sorry for reacting the way he did that day. He took the blame for how both my mom and he spoke to me after the party because they didn't even think about how I must have been feeling. He kept mentioning how I ruined the party and how my behavior left a bad impression on the people who had been invited, but then they actually thought it over and realized I wasn't the kind of person to just lose it over anything. It must have cost me a lot to feel that way and act the way I did. They weren't saying my behavior was suddenly acceptable, but they regretted having involved my feelings just because they thought it was more important to be perceived as a happy and healthy family rather than really trying to be one. So now they wanted to talk to me and really get to the bottom of how I had been feeling and why I did what I did that day. None of us had really been listening to each other, and that's why there had been so many misunderstandings, and we ended up not speaking for 5 days. They told me they had already talked to Rebecca and that she would be paying me the money in a couple of days. They had heard her side of the story, but now they wanted to hear mine. So I told them that I just felt really bad because I treated her like family. I made so many concessions for her, and she knew it, but even that wasn't enough for her to treat me with a minimum of human decency. I felt used and betrayed when she told me I wasn't even invited and wanted me to leave. That's why I had such a strong reaction. I regret my outburst, but it was about time, and I don't think I owe her an apology. My parents told me they could understand how I felt and didn't believe it was their place to forgive me, but it wasn't their place to hold it against me either because this is between me and Rebecca, and they think we can resolve it on our own if we want to and don't want to be part of this anymore, and honestly, I respect that. So at least now things are clear between my parents and me. As for Rebecca, I really don't know what's going to happen, but I just hope she pays me the money I'm owed. Update 2. It's been a week and a half since her engagement party, and today I finally received the payment. However, I only received $1,000, and she told me she deducted what she considered necessary due to my behavior at the party. I believe I deserved to receive the full amount, considering what had happened, or even more since I wouldn't have given her a family discount, but I also didn't feel like continuing to argue with her over it. I also don't want to talk to her again or have any kind of interaction with her because I'm just tired and want to move past this as quickly as possible. There will always be more clients in the future, and I can always recover the money, but I won't be able to recover my mental health or the time I'll waste talking to her and trying to reason with her. So I think we are all better off without getting involved. My parents and I are back to normal, and it's as if that little setback never even happened, which is great. Update 3. Rebecca got married a few days ago, and obviously I wasn't invited, but that's fine because I don't think I want to be part of anything that includes her. I think we can say the same about her when it comes to me. My parents attended, and I know they had a good time, but they didn't talk to me about it, and I really appreciate that. Even my mom, who had a hard time understanding before that my sister and I weren't getting along, respected the fact that she and I didn't want to talk or listen to each other. Now it seems obvious that we don't get along anymore. We've gone back to ignoring each other at family events, and I think that's for the best in the long run. I wish her a lot of happiness and success in her new life, but I don't have many intentions of reconciling. My business is doing well, and I'm happy. My parents and I have a good relationship, and I have a sister. She just isn't my biological sister, and I'm actually talking about Lana, who has also been there for me these past days. I have excellent friends and co-workers. I couldn't ask for more. Update 4. It's been a while since I wrote about my sister, around 8 months if I'm not mistaken, but I needed to give you all this update. First, because many of you have asked if anything new has happened, but also because I think it's something that will interest you. It turns out that David cheated on Rebecca. Yes, the same David who had been with her for years and finally took her to the altar. I found out about this through Lana, who was distanced from Rebecca but had been talking to her recently. It seems she needed someone to vent to. At first I couldn't believe it, but then I realized that given Rebecca's history with relationships, it wasn't that surprising after all. But that's not the end of the update. Shortly after, I received a call from Rebecca. She wanted to talk and vent about how she always ends up choosing the wrong men, including the one she chose over me that caused us to drift apart. I could hear some sort of apologies amidst her venting, but nothing concrete. I really didn't even know why she called me. I guess she didn't have anyone else to talk to besides my cousin, and that she had always prioritized men as she did with me, which is why she was alone now. But honestly, I don't care anymore. Besides, I don't want any relationship with my sister after everything that happened, after all the ways she hurt and humiliated me. I just don't have space in my life for her. I told her kindly that I couldn't help her and that I needed to distance myself from her for my own mental health. I could tell she didn't like what I said, but she didn't protest. I know it might sound harsh, but sometimes you need to protect yourself and set boundaries, even with your own family. I was honest with her this whole time, but she never believed me about what happened. So now she can find another friend because I'm no longer that, or a sister to her. I think we're better off away from each other, and not all relationships, even if they're family, need to be repaired. I talked to my parents about it, and while they hoped we would grow closer, they understand. And they aren't going to meddle in the middle again. At least my dad. My mom always sought that between us, but my dad told me he would do his best to ensure she didn't try anything.